Okay, welcome to our video on combining images. Now we saw in the image size video how to take your snapshot, even from different resolution sizes of camera, how to take that snapshot and prepare it for receiving the sphere, for that receiving that imagery onto another layer. So take a look at that image size video, but once you've got that sphere moved over here, and again with the move tool, just go into that original layered sphere document, grab all the appropriate layers and just drag them on over here, and you can, as we said in our upsampling downsampling video, you can scale that down at that point if you want to, but don't scale it up because weird things will start to happen to your colors and textures if you upsample. So bring that in, downsample it. Now that I've brought this in, I have here, let's see, fountain.psd. I've got my original snapshot background, and I've got all those sphere layers that I brought in. They're all separate, which is good. You can keep them grouped. Now, keep in mind, I don't have, over here in channels, I don't have my alpha channel saved anymore with the selection. So how else can I make the selection? Well, in my particular case, I've got a mask saved. I can bring that in as an alpha channel if that's relevant, or if not, I could take my most obvious sphere layer and then do kind of a magic wand selection, with everything else but. I could invert that selection and utilize that to make an alpha channel. Either way would be fine. If you need that other selection, if you think you might need that, and you might, that's a good thing to do early on so that you've got that selection made, or rather saved, before you start messing around with anything else. Take a look at the lighting in your shot. It may be different from the lighting in your sphere, because what's wrong with this picture? And I think I'll scoot this over so that we can concentrate on this one image now. What's wrong with this picture? There's lighting coming in here, a lot of bright lighting coming from, kind of this angle. Let's take a look at the sculptures, and that would give us some clues as to what we need to be looking for. There's a bright highlight on the edge, pretty much flat shadow otherwise, but we do see darker shadows in the crevices here. So we've got intense light coming from the opposite direction. I'll resize that so we can see the whole image again. There we go. And so for one thing, this sphere, I think I'll want to do something called flip horizontal, because right now my shadows are over here. It's as if my light on the sphere is coming from that kind of an angle, from over here on the left, and everything else, the light is coming from a much sharper angle from the total opposite side. So our first line of defense is to select all these layers, and remember to get all these layers that make up the sphere. And I'm going to keep these separate because I'll adjust this highlights layer and some other layers momentarily, and you'll see why it's a great idea to have these as separate. But I'll go under Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. It's just going to flip this around like turning over a coin. There it goes. Now that went a long way to making this fit in, but I still, that light source seems to be coming from the angle from which I'm viewing it, and not from the skyline back here. So there's probably some other adjustments that I can make. What's on my highlights layer? Oh, there we go. I could just turn that off, and let's create yet another layer here, and we can just call that new highlights. We'll keep the old one, just in case we want to go back. But if I can select this, I'll name it new highlights. Well, that's okay. But about now, I'm wanting to make a selection. I kind of wished I'd saved that when I advised you to. So here we go. Let's do a little magic wand. Actually, I'll select that sphere layer. We'll do a little magic wand and invert. and I can save that selection. And now I can match up these little highlights. These are something I'm going to have to paint onto this sphere. And let's see, I've got white as my foreground color. I can get a nice brush going. That's about the right size, and I can just skirt around the edge. Hopefully that's a nice soft brush. Let's see. Yeah, hardness of 0. Opacity of 87. We could even bump that up a notch. And I'll just kind of skirt around the edge here until we can get, that's pretty good. And it might be a little heavy-handed. You know, you can come back and do differently later on. Let's see. Let's see if we can get that a little bit lighter. A little more over this way. Even lighter still up top would be really great if we could do that. You know, I might need a smaller brush. I think it's getting that soft edge on there. So let's go about half that diameter. And let's go up to full opacity. There we go. Let's take a look at what else we've got here that's... oh, now the white speckles, we could pull back on the fill on that layer a little bit. Speckles pull back. And we could do... we could pick up a little color here, like so, and just do yet another interim layer. Get a nice beefy brush. Now we'll pull way back on opacity and flow with that, and just kind of dull up the edge just a little. There we go. And that, let's deselect. Well, that kind of makes it fit in a little bit better. Now what about our shadow? Let's do a shadow layer. And you may have noticed in this one that I did for the demo previously, I really did kind of a crummy job on the shadow. How does that look, you know, mismatched compared with everything else in the photo? It's much softer, it's much grayer. So we're going to try and repeat the properties of this other shadow. Let's see here. There we go. So I'm on a brand new shadow layer. I probably don't want this gigantic soft brush. Probably want a brush that's smaller and maybe a little harder edged. And we can pick up with the eyedropper some of this color perhaps, which is almost black, a little bluish. Let's pull back maybe a notch on that just to be safe, and let's get the brush that we picked. Now here I had set the opacity way back. Let's put the opacity on full and fill. We'll give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room there. Maybe I don't want the opacity on full. What's wrong with that picture? Although we can pull back with the opacity of the layer. And here's just kind of a guess as to what kind of shadow that might cast. We'll make it a longer shadow. How's that? Because this light, I think, is kind of moving down toward the horizon, or light source. But something along that line. And now I can pull back. Actually, I'll pull back on fill a little bit with that layer. And there we go. That's matching up fairly well. We could even do a second shadow layer because you can see in the shadow of the statue, it's kind of a two-leveled shadow. There we go, and we'll pull back on fill on that and see how we're doing. We could even soften that layer a little bit with a little more brushwork. That would probably be good, so I wouldn't get this banding in here. And we might want to take both of these shadow layers and move them up a little bit. They're not quite matching up with the base of the sphere. There we go, and I'd have to add a little bit to this outer shadow on the bottom, but that's coming right along. So here we brought the sphere in, we matched up the light source, we did a flip horizontal, which was under Edit and Transform. Flip horizontal to get the light source basically matched up. We played with some of the existing sphere layers and either turned them off or adjusted them. We made some new highlights and softened up the midtones to match up the midtones on the existing sculptures here. And we've come a long way. We need to improve on the shadow a bit yet, but this has come a long way from just dragging that sphere over somewhat mindlessly, and now it really starts to fit in. So good luck with your project, and that's our video for now.